Adding radical expressions is a topic in lesson 65 that we're going to discuss. Before we talk about adding radical expressions, let's review what we already know. Uh, let's talk about adding like terms. Now, if I had 2a plus 3b plus a plus 2b. Now, what I have here is an expression that has four terms. Now, what are the like terms? Well, the like terms are the terms that have the same combination of variables or letters to the same exponent. So notice that I have some a's, and notice I have some b's. And the ones that I underline with one line I can combine, and the terms that I underline with two lines I can combine. It doesn't matter which ones I combine first. I'm going to combine the one-liners. So 2a plus 1a, because remember that's the same as 1, gives me 3 of those a's. And then finally with the b's, I have 3b plus 2 more b's, and that gives me a positive 5b. And that's really up to this point, we've had different variations of adding like terms, where we involve exponents, but more or less this was the concept. Now, when we talk about adding radical expressions, radicals involve the radical sign. And remember, we could have the square root, that could be the cubed root or whatever, but radicals really involve the radical sign or square roots. Also, we've already talked about adding rational expressions. And remember, a rational expression was more or less, fractions. So let's continue with talking about adding radical expressions. Now in example 1, I've got, it says, well, first of all, it says add. Now I've got an expression that has 4 terms, or excuse me, 3 terms. So I have 4 radical 2, that's one term. I have 5 radical 2, that's a second term. And I have 12 radical 2, which is a third term. Now just like the example that I gave on the previous screen, I really, instead of using letters, instead of having like a 4a minus a 5a plus a 12a, well, they've got 4 radical 2, 5 radical 2, 12 radical 2. They all have radical 2's. So all 3 terms are like terms. So I'm just going to add and subtract them. So I have 4 of these minus 5. Let's see, 4 minus 5 is a negative 1. And then a negative 1 plus 12 gives me 11 of the radical 2's. And I've simplified the expression, or in other words, I've added these terms. So all 3 of these terms were like terms because they have the same radical, which is a radical 2. Alright, let's take a look at example 2. Now, again, I've got an expression, and I've got 3 terms in the expression. Now this time, not all the terms are like terms. So I have a radical 3 here, and I have a radical 3 here. So I can combine those. Those are like terms. And then I have this radical 5, which is different than the other 2. So I'm going to combine the radical 3's first. You don't have to. I could write 3 radical 5 first, but I'm going to combine the radical 3. So I have 4 of them here minus 6. So let's see, 4 take away 6 is a negative 2 of the radical 3's. And then I have the plus 3 radical 5. And I'm done. I can't combine these. I cannot combine these because those are unlike terms. One has a radical 3, the other one has a radical 5. Alright, in example 3, now I have 4 terms. Let's try to identify if I have any like terms. Let's see, here I have a radical 2, here I have a radical 2. So I can combine those. Here I have a radical 3, here I have a radical 3. I can combine those. Now this time I'm going to combine the 2-liners. Remember I said it doesn't make a difference what you do first. So let's see, I have 5 of the radical 3's plus 8 more, so that's 13 of the radical 3's. Now let's do the one-liners. A negative 3, so let's see, 3 degrees below 0 drops, or take away another 2, that's a negative 5 of the radical 2's. And I'm done, because now I have an expression that has unlike terms. Alright, final example. Let's take a look at example 4. 3 terms, and the directions on this is to add. Now the only way I can add them is if I have like terms. Well, what do you notice? This is a radical 3, the next one's a radical 2, next one's radical 5. None of these are the same, so we're done. I mean, there's nothing that I can do. This expression is already simplified. So this is our final answer. We didn't have to do anything with it. So the topic of this for lesson 65 is called adding radical expressions.